My name is Dennis O'Neill. I am a lieutenant with the police department here. I'm going to go through kind of my history and why it brings me to this point. But the whole purpose of today's training is, for those of you that have been in it, is a refresher and active shooter. And for those that are new, it's kind of something that we put on citywide, and it's something that's been adopted almost nationwide as what to do in the event of an active shooter or a violent intruder. They used to just say violent intruder, but as we have seen throughout history, it has turned into mostly firearms being involved. Now, whatever your thoughts are on gun control, whatever your thoughts are on smaller magazines for guns, obtaining guns, that's not today's issue. The fact is that they're here. And the fact is some people have bad intentions with those. Our job here today is to give you tools to use in the event that someone is making bad choices with that gun and to increase your survivability. So what brings me here today is when I started with the police department, it was 1999. And not shortly after that, I got on to our SWAT team, and then I was involved in just the high-risk warrant service, kicking indoors. And also in 1999 was around in that area where Columbine, does everybody remember that, had taken place. It was one of the first trends in mass shootings that the United States would experience. They had had it happen elsewhere across the world, in Russia and in other countries in Europe, but we had not had that experience here. So one thing that we learned as police officers from the Columbine incident is it took us way too long to get into that building and get to where those two were doing the shooting. When we first started in our active shooting incidents, what would happen on the law enforcement side was a SWAT team would get together, and then a SWAT team would make entry into the building. When they got into the building, they would start at the first room. We would do what we call clear the first room, make sure that there was nothing happening in there. Then go out and go to the next room, and then go to the next room. So if you can imagine that in a school, starting on the lower level, that's going to take some time. Where meanwhile, they are upstairs in the library, and they are doing shootings over and over. So when we did that, we realized that that wasn't going to work. So they started sending me, as part of the SWAT team, to active shooter incident involvement classes. And when I was young, that was kind of fun. You would go spend a week, and they would give us the long rifles, and we would go in and we would kick in doors in an abandoned building, and we would run around and we would shout at one another. So what we decided to come up with was what was called direct to threat. Okay? And what would happen is when 4 or 5 officers would get together, one of you would be the point person, and then you would form either a diamond or a T, and you would start going through the hallways. You would go through the hallways quick, and you would check each room on either side, and you would keep doing that as you went through the building. We noticed that that wasn't working either, that these incidents were still taking place and we were still having high body counts. As we went along then, in my training, we came up with this immediate directed threat, which was the first officer on scene would grab his rifle and would go in and would go to where he hears the bad noise coming from and go in and make it stop. We were still getting high body counts. That's when we learned that there was something that needed to be done also on the citizen side of it, and that's why we're here today. What we started to learn was that these incidents were happening, and they were happening quickly, and meanwhile, everyone that was involved in these incidents was staying put, was staying where they were. And as my career went on, I became in charge of the TAC team. And so I started to constantly be involved in this. I constantly seeing these mass shootings take place. As this went along, probably the most important thing happened to help me be developed in this incident. And it was Nora, Finn, and Sully. Those are my 3 kids. And that's what I found out, what they were doing in the schools and what we were doing in the workplaces. And everybody probably went through some form of it as you went through school, where they had lockdown drills. And in those lockdown drills, they would gather all the kids, and they would take all the kids and put them in a corner, turn out the lights, and have them be quiet. That was starting to explain the issue. Why was there such a high body count? It's because we made it readily available. So then we started to develop a different system that would work with both police and the citizens. And that is a system that I really pushed, and I pushed through the schools. And it's going to come down to 3 things: run, hide, and fight. And we're going to go through all 3 of those things as each step. And here's what I tell people. And this is, if you listen to anything, this is what I want you to hear, is run. Run every single time. Run, run, run. Run some more. Stop, tie your shoes, and then keep on running. Okay? Run if you can. Hide if you have to. There's nothing wrong with hiding. It's what you're doing while you're hiding that we're going to learn about. Okay? And then the last resort, fight. And the fighting that we're going to talk about is not like the fighting you see in the movies where you go fist to fist with the guy. Okay? We're talking about fighting for your life. And we'll go through that part too. So run if you can. Hide if you have to. Fight if you need to. Why is this so important as we go along? Does anyone know when our last major shooting was? There was just one that was foiled last week, and we probably hear so much about them. One thing that I found shocking, and that I have some stuff here, is, do you guys remember King Shoppers Supermarket in Boulder, Colorado? Do you remember that, where the guy went in and started shooting inside of the supermarket? One law enforcement officer died. Do you guys realize that that was March of this year? It was just March. It seems like so long ago, doesn't it? Because there were so many others. In that incident, there were 10 people that were dead. That does not include the gunman. And then as we look along, and I started to do some more, I started to find these. In February of 2021, 5 people dead, Buffalo, Minnesota. In that incident, a nurse was killed and 4 other people were shot when a guy went inside of like a hospital or a medical care facility. December 26th, Rockford, Illinois, 6 people dead. A guy goes into a bowling alley, kills 3. Now these are all incidents where it's not like a family party gathered together. It's not like I'm mad at you, so I go in there and I kill a lot of people along with you. Then we also had one in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, November of last year. Mayfair Mall shooting. 8 people were hospitalized at that incident. Then we had one in February of last year, Milwaukee Brewery shooting. There were 6 people that were killed in that one. Those are in the Midwest. Those are within the last year. And those are all at public places or workplaces. So when we put on this presentation, it's something that we do that I hate to say it, but it's almost become a life skill, right? You go into every hotel that you see, and they have that fire exit on the back of the door. Have you guys ever seen that? I always look there because it also gives the checkout time. The very last minute I can get all the kids out. But there you'll see that there's a fire exit. It's a life skill, right? This has become a life skill. So as we learn about all these mass shootings, we're going to find out what we can do. And I talked about those 3 things: the run, the hide, and the fight. Why it became so important is because through all these lockdown drills that were taught either at a workplace that you were at or in a school that you were at, was you were supposed to turn out the lights, shut the door, maybe lock the door, and then gather in the corner. That's what they taught my kids. That's why that Nora, Finn, and Sully thing is so important. I found out that's what they were doing at the schools. There was nothing wrong with it. It's in their instinct to make sure they keep track of your children, right? We hand them off in the morning and we say, we'll be back this afternoon. Give them back to me. So their job was to try to keep a hold of them the best that they could. So they would gather them all and they would put them in the corner. So now you have somebody that comes in there and starts doing the shooting. Once he gets through that door, what does he have to do? And I say he because a majority of these firearm incidents are males. Okay. All he has to do once he gets through that door is look left and look right. And we've told the kids, sit there in the corner, right? Be quiet. So he's got a turkey shoot, essentially, doesn't he? He just has to start shooting. And then he has to go to the next room. Here's something that's pretty important that I want you to remember, okay? It's about 3 minutes and 30 seconds. That's the average time for one of these incidents, from the start of the most violent incident to the time that the person stops. 3 minutes and 30 seconds. We're getting body counts, 10, 16, 22, in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. It's because that's still ingrained in us, to lock ourselves, lock down in place. Does anybody ever remember seeing the old videos during the nuclear war time when they told you to get under your desk in case of a nuclear attack? What was that going to do if a nuclear bomb went off? Nothing, but it made you feel safe. That's what my impression is of the old way of the lockdown drill. It made you feel safe. There was comfort in the crowd and comfort altogether. But the only thing you were providing was easy targets. Here's the hard thing to understand, is that person is coming into that room to kill you. That's it. That's all he wants. He doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care what you stand for. He wants to kill you. And he wants to kill as many of you as he can in the shortest amount of time he can. So in the past, all we were doing was making it easy for him. We provided him the targets. So in that change from that lockdown drill and in the schools, what we've done is they've taught, and it came out to, it was called ALICE. It was alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. But that's way too much to remember. And it's especially way too much to remember in a stressful situation if you're not accustomed to stressful situations. So then they narrowed it down to just the run, the hide, and the fight. And we've seen progress with running, hiding, and fighting. So in the schools, when they started to change the policy, and as we went through and we started to change the workplace policy, we learned that first one. And that's the first place we'll hit, is run. When you're running, there's not a whole lot that needs to go behind it. All you do is everybody has that sense and everybody has that feeling. Something ain't right. Right? We've all been there. Some probably more than others. If you have that feeling, you run away from it. Okay. There's two things that are human nature, and it's fight and flight, right? And if you don't have the right tools for the fight, why would you stick around? There's no shame in running. When you need to run, one thing that is important to think about is what are ways to get out of where you are? We're all creatures of habit. We all come in the door the same way. We probably all drive to work the same way, right? But in this change, in the way of thinking, I want you to start thinking about how can I get out of certain places. This room here, great example. It's pretty easy, right? There's an exit over there. We can go out here. We can go out through the cafeteria or the kitchen area there. You can break out against the one door that goes all the way to the east. You can go down in here into the machine shop and you can get out, right? We're going to learn that time and distance are your friend, because the farther you get away and the more time goes by, the greater your rate of survivability. Now notice I said survivability and not necessarily shot, but survivability. I always say that because people say, well, what if there's another shooter around another area? It's very rarely happened. I can think of only 2 incidents where people have been ambushed. Okay? And if you're running, you're a moving target. And as we'll find out, moving targets are very hard to have fatal shots done. So start thinking about those different ways to run when you're in a building, when you're in the shop. You know, when you're back here where the mechanics are, it's pretty easy. You've got other places to go. But where do you go when you're outside of there? And again, get some distance. Make it difficult for them to have that shot. Even if you're behind a car that's right outside of the shop or right outside of where the trucks are kept. Even if you're behind a car, behind a barricade, you've made it more difficult, right, to get that fatal shot. So we don't try to bog people down with too much science. We don't need you to necessarily zigzag every 5th step, jump to the right and roll. We don't want you to do that. We want you to put that distance between you and the person that's doing the shooting. Okay? So like I said, that's the first thing. You guys can shut me off the rest of the day if you want. If you learn that, is run. Run every time. Now when the police get there, and like I said, now we go direct to threat, we actually use that as a key indicator for us. Because if we see a group of people running this way, chances are that means that something bad is happening over here, right? So we're going to go this way. Well, now that fight thing is different. Because now I have the equipment that matches that fight, right? I've got a rifle, I've got a ballistic vest, I have a handgun. Okay, so we've equaled out that fight. So you running actually benefits law enforcement because now I only have to deal with one person there as opposed to a bunch of people sheltered around. Because I have to account for every round that comes out of my gun. Bad guy doesn't. So as you're running away, and the police officer is running to it, that's actually a benefit to you because when the police officer gets there, and this is the part my wife hates, now who's he shooting at? He's shooting at me, right? Who is he not shooting at? He's not shooting at those people that are running away. And now you're creating distance. You'll see some people, if you're at some workplaces, or some of you that drive around, you'll see that they have evacuation plans, and there's meeting points and meeting areas. You know, meet up at building C if you need to evacuate. I ask you, are you going to remember that if there's a guy in the building and he's shooting and you're taking off running? No. Don't get locked down with a whole bunch of extra stuff. Now, okay, now where was I supposed to go? Okay, I was supposed to go out to that big sand dome thing back there. But I'm way over here. How do I get back? Oh, the last time I used the exit was out where the garbage trucks are kept, okay? No, don't remember that. Run, take off. Get out of here. If you need to, you can meet back up there, but get out of here. Find out whatever building you're at. And it's important for the run situation is to remember because some of you travel around. Some of you are moving around. Sometimes you're put into a facility that is, you know, maybe a city building. Maybe it's a school. Maybe you stop somewhere to use the restroom. Maybe you stop somewhere to grab a sandwich. Okay? It's not just necessarily this building. It's not just necessarily home base. So it's just to take that little extra second and think, okay, where am I going to go? Where are some ways out? When you think about those things and you start putting them in your head, you'll find out how quick it is. For me, it's easy because I've been doing it the last 22 years. And it drives my family bonkers. Okay? But now I can do it so quick that they forget it and they don't do it, and I do it. That's okay. Because all I need to do is make sure that I tell my kids to run. And here's a fun little fact. For those of you that are parents, or those of you that have nieces or nephews and you're with them, I tell my kids every single time to run. And I'll find you. Okay? I don't want my kids worried about, I can't run anywhere without mom or dad. No, I want you to run. I'll find you. I've had people that have said to me, well, what about the guy that goes around and picks up kids at a violent incident? Well, you've got cops, you've got police, you've got fire, and they're all over the place. Do you think the guy in the van wants to troll through those neighborhoods with all those people? And the other thing is there are good people and good citizens. Think to yourself, if you were at home and it was a Saturday morning and you saw a 6 or 7-year-old crying in the middle of the street while you were having coffee, would you go out and find out what's wrong? Yeah, you would. You'd want to know if everything's okay. Where's your mom and dad? And if they say, I don't know, you'd probably take the next step, wouldn't you? There's a lot of people that are like that. So I tell my kids to run. I will find you. They say, well, how long? Doesn't matter. I will find you. That's all I want them to think about in that incident. And that's what I want you to think about. And don't worry about reporting to, the rally point. Run. Figure out running first. I would much rather, if there was a violent incident at my kid's school, get there at the school, meet with the principal, and him tell me, Mr. O'Neill, I can't tell you where Nora is right now. We can't find her. Awesome, right? Because she took off. What if that principal tells me, Mr. O'Neill, I can't have you go in room 232 just yet? Read between the lines. Right? Something went down. If you can't find my kid, that's awesome. That means they took off. I'll find them. You'll find them. So don't get bogged down with needing to meet someplace. It doesn't need to be hard to do. It just needs to be a matter of, okay, if I walk into Hy-Vee and something's going down, where am I taking off? Look at all the places there are to take off out of Hy-Vee, right? If you're in the King's Shopper in Boulder, Colorado, that's what a lot of people did. They took off. There were people that were outside of the shopping mall that heard stuff going on inside of there, that King's Shopper. They heard stuff and they'll tell you, it sounded funky. No, I didn't want to go in there. Right? It's obvious. Get out of there. So as you're driving along, as you're working, as you stop someplace, just think to yourself really quick, where am I going to take off if I need to? If I use the bathroom at Quick Star, and I'm in the bathroom, and I hear something going down, where are some places I can take off? Well, if you think of it, if you walk out of there, and you break around one left or right at any convenience store, chances are you're getting to that back area where they fill the coolers, right? Maybe there's a way out that way. And get yourself out of there. So that's why we want people to think about running all the time. And we don't want to make it hard, and we don't want to come up with different techniques. We just want you to put distance in between you and the bad thing. And while you're creating that distance, you're taking up time before we get there. A majority of these incidents happen because of the time availability. Think back to all of the things that you've seen as far as these violent incidents go on. And when does the bad person go in, do a bunch of shooting, and set the gun down on the table and go, that's enough, I'll just wait? Doesn't happen, does it? They keep going, and they keep going, and they keep going until what? until it gets hard. And when it gets hard, there's three things that can happen. They can give up, they can be shot or killed, or they can kill themselves. Majority of the time, what happens? They kill themselves, right? We've seen all these incidents as they've gone along. They kill themselves. They keep doing the shooting and they keep doing the killing until it gets hard. Once it gets hard, then they take their own life. Now, I never ever wish for someone to have such a bad day that they feel that they need to take their own life. But today, when I woke up, when you guys woke up, we didn't sign on for being the victim before they take their own life, right? So, I'm going to make it hard. So all you need to do is take that time when you run, right? And create that distance. What if you can't run? What if there's just no way out? Well, now you need to hide. And there's nothing wrong with hiding. There's nothing wrong with barricading yourself in. But what you do need to do is make it hard, because what has lots of practice showed us, past practice, that if we make it hard, then they're going to move on. Remember, we have that 3 minutes and 30 seconds, so you need to think of that, okay? If there was something that was happening right now in this room, or outside there, and we're all in this room, and we couldn't leave, let's just say we couldn't leave, how could we hide in here? We're not all going to go to the corner, are we? No, we're not. Everybody just shake your head. No, we're not. Okay. But we're going to hide. We know we can't get out of here. So we need to make it difficult, right? We need to make it hard, and we need to take up time. So do we have stuff that we can put in front of the doors right now in this room that are going to make it difficult? We got a ton of tables, right? We got a ton of chairs. We've got everything in here. Doesn't matter which way the door swings, does it? It can swing out. It can swing in. You know, we just need to put stuff in front of it. Because what we're doing is creating that obstacle, creating something to make it hard to get in here. Remember, we have that 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Bad guy also knows that he doesn't have a lot of time. So if we're all on the same page and we say we can't leave here, and we say it's time to hide, let's make it difficult, and we all start grabbing tables, in about a minute, with this whole group here, how many tables and chairs do you think we could get in front of all these doors? Probably darn near all of them, right? We can just throw them up there and pile them up there. And it doesn't matter, like we said, about the door. Here's one thing about doors. Man has not made a door yet that you can't go in, under, around, or through eventually. The key word is eventually. He doesn't have that much time, does he? So all we need to do while we're in this incident and while we need to stay in here is make it hard for him to get in. And you think about it, we get all those tables, we get all those chairs, and we're all on the same page, and we get them all piled up there, and he opens that door right there. How hard is it going to be for him to get through there? He's going to have to wade through a lot of that, isn't he? He's going to have to move a lot of tables out of the way, isn't he? Do you think he wants to take up that much time? You know, it only took us a minute to put him up there. There's 1 minute gone. He's one guy. He could, I suppose, yell and ask if we would help him. I'm not going to. Okay? So we did that all in about a minute. How long do you think it's going to take him to get through all that stuff so he can get fatal shots? Let alone 26 fatal shots, even if we're all just sitting in the corner. Right? So there's nothing wrong with hiding. It's what you're doing while you're hiding. Okay? As you go through. So use that one and think of that one. Okay? While you're out. What can I do if I need to hide? How can I barricade myself inside of my office if I need to hide? If I'm at the store, where can I go if I need to hide? When you start thinking in that mind frame, now you're in that survivability mode. And it's super easy to do and super quick. We just did it for this room right here with all of us. There was no pre-planning. There was no stuff put on paper. There was no stuff saying count off in 4s and 1s take this door, 2s take that door. We all know that if a bad thing is happening, we want it to stop, right? So think to yourself, I need to hide. Think if you're with your family. What can I tell my family? All right, we're going to hide. Help me move this sofa. Help me move this TV. You may be that point person. So think of it as you're going along, that you're hiding, but you're not just hiding to protect yourself, you're hiding to survive. And it's not all doom and gloom, because there may be a time when you're in there and we hear the bad thing go past us. Well, now it's a good chance to do what? Run, right? So can we get ourselves out of there? If everybody's on the same page, it took us a minute to stack all that stuff up there. It's not going to take us long to tear it off of there, is it? If we hear it go down this hall, go out that door, and start going out into that parking lot, do we have time to move some stuff away and go which way? That way, probably? I think we do. I think we can. If you want to stay and hide, that's okay. You've got yourself barricaded in there. But if you're all on the same page and they're like, okay, he's clearly gone out that far, or we've heard him go out that far, let's see if we can. While you're in that hiding mode is to start thinking, all right, I got myself barricaded in. If I need to change and switch up, because it's not always in the same order, can I do that? Can I break myself free? Can I get myself out? And if you create that time and that distance, you increase your survivability. That's all we're talking about. So then we'll spend quite a little bit of time here on the last part, and it's the fighting part. This is the part that sometimes gets people a little uneasy, thinking that they have to fight, and it's not like the movies, okay? You're not doing the fighting like he comes through the door and you get in a stance and you get ready to go, right? It's not karate kicks. It's not karate, moves. It's not ultimate fighting, wrestling holds. You're fighting to survive. You're fighting for your own life, okay? So along with fighting for your own life, you don't need to win. You don't need to pin a person to the ground, take the gun away from them. Your goal is to make it hard. Your goal is to make it hard to be a target. Your goal is to make it hard to get a fatal shot. We're going to see, like I said earlier, how hard it is to take that fatal shot. So when you're fighting, you need to think of it and you need to kind of change that mentality. Has anybody ever seen the TV shows or the videos where somebody's walking along and they find a cute little bear cub, right? And they're playing with the bear cub and it's fun and it's funny. What's waiting around the corner? Mama bear, right? Mama bear's waiting around the corner. What's she going to do when she sees you having fun with her little bear? She is going to come at you. She's going to come at you hard. And she's going to keep coming at you, and she's not going to stop. And when you back away from that cub, and you put some distance between you and that cub, what is she doing? She's still coming at you. She's still making sure that nothing's going to happen. That's what I need you to fight like. I need you to have that mentality of not today. This is not happening today. And it's not happening to me, it's not happening to my coworkers, and it's not happening to my friends and family. Or heck, even strangers that are in the same room with you. It's not happening today. So even if we were to cut this room in half, and just have half the people here, and somebody came through that door, what do we have in here to fight with? Let's say we haven't even gotten a chance to block that up, right? We've got chairs, don't we? We've got tables. Some of you are pretty motivated that you can pick up tables. What else do we have that's going to make it really difficult, that's really going to hurt, that's really going to inflict some sort of injury, that's really going to do some damage and be uncomfortable? Right? You've got that. Think of all the things that are around you. We've got computers. Here's where we get to some other stuff that people normally don't think about. We have coffee cups. Coffee cup's not very big. I throw a coffee cup at him, that's not going to be a big deal. What if he's getting 10 coffee cups thrown at him? What if he's getting 5 lunch pails, 10 coffee cups, 2 chairs, and the cable cameras? We wouldn't, guys, but we might, okay? And a garbage can. Okay, now he's getting all those things. Has it just gotten really hard? It has just gotten really hard. When you think together, when you're all together in that thought. Now, those guys that are mechanics, that are out here, and you're all working together, you probably have that extra special, great big busted wrench that you keep a hold of, right? Awesome, good. I'm the guy that's telling you, keep a hold of it. Just leave it sit in the back there. But think of all the things if you're in an office. What do you have in your office? You have a computer, right? You've got your chair. You've got, pens, coffee mugs. You've got pictures. One of the things we did when our kids were in kindergarten, because they really couldn't fight, right, as they were growing up. My kids are older now. But when they were in kindergarten and they were in first grade, every year we would get the teacher, after they went through this class, we would get the teacher the world's greatest teacher mug. You remember that big, gaudy, ugly mug? We'd get them that. They knew exactly what it was for. You don't want your kids to go to class with a teacher that's got a big billy club in the corner. But if she's got a whole row behind her of 10 coffee mugs, every year we would give it to them. They would laugh. So think of those things that are outside of it that you have in your office that you can use. Even if you have a pad of paper, even if you have a cell phone, even if you have an empty pop container, you have things to fight with. Right? So now think of the places that you go, that you work. You stop at Quick Star. Are there things there that you can use to fight with? Okay. When you're out to eat with your family, do you have things that are there to fight with? The plate that your food comes on, right? So we want you to start thinking that. When you're thinking of that fighting, I've been talking about that, the time and the survivability, when they both are, when you're moving that distance, and it all increases, your survivability increases. Sorry, when you have that time that's being used up, and when you create that distance, that survivability increases. So the reason that it's such a big deal when you're fighting that you really don't need a lot of material is what's called an OODA loop. Has anybody ever heard of an OODA loop? Okay. OODA loop is OODA, and somebody way smarter than me came up with it in the military. But it stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And we all do it every single day with everything that we do. Okay? You observe that you're thirsty. Okay? You orient yourself to your mug, right? You decide you're going to take a drink, and you act. You reach out for that mug, and you take a drink. Right? That's an OODA loop right there at its very simplest function. Okay. Same OODA loop again. You observe that you're thirsty. You orient yourself to your mug. You decide that you're going to take a drink out of that mug. You act and you reach for that mug, and the phone rings at the same time. Or your phone goes off. Instead of reaching for the mug, you reach to see who's on your phone. Was that OODA loop interrupted? It's really simple, right? In its most simple terms. There's that door there, right? Okay, I want to go out that door. I observe that there's a door there. I orient myself to that door. I decide I'm going to walk through that door, and I act. It's all one thing, okay? I observe it. I orient how far I am. I decide that I'm going to walk out, and then I act, and I push the door open. We all do it, and I'm going to go over this again and again and again because it's very important when people get this mindset. Okay, same thing again. I observe that I want to go out the room. I orient myself to the door, right? I decide I'm going to go, and I act. Nobody ever does this, do they? Doesn't this drive you nuts when somebody's standing there? You don't do that. That's not part of the human nature of an OODA loop. It's not to put one before the other. It's not to stand out here and be ready to go like that. The OODA loop is important because to run this takes a whole lot. This gun is not real. It's got the orange tip. That's all it does. So you have this, okay? This takes a whole lot to run, okay? When you have that, how many people in here have run some sort of firearm? Shotgun, rifle, handgun? Okay, so we are pretty good, and you're going to know that. When I go through this gun, there's what's called the nomenclature of the gun, and it's all the parts to it and everything. I'm not going to use, like front sight, rear sight, all of the fancy parts to it, because I want everybody to understand, even those that have not had experience with firearms, what they are. So I know that this little pointy thing is not called the pointy thingy at the front, okay? Firearms guys, I know that. But we're going to go through it all, so it's in very simple terms. When you want to shoot a gun, the first thing you have to do is find your target, right? Find your target. When you find your target, you have to put the front, this little part right here, is called the front sight. You have to put that front sight on the target. After you get the front sight on the target, you have to match it up with the back sight for most guns. Okay? And you focus on that sight. As you do that, then you need to remain steady. Okay? You have to have a steady shot. Okay? When you've done all of those things, then you need to gently, smoothly pull the trigger. So you mean to tell me that these guys are getting 26 people, 16 people, because they went out and they trained to do all of those things with this or with a rifle? They did it because we made it easy. They did it because it wasn't hard for them and they had the time. So now think of that same thing again. Here's a person that has made the decision of their life, okay, to possibly end their life. They come in the front door. They find a target. They put that on the target, that front sight. They put that on the target. And then they took time to make sure that it was balanced in between there. While they did that, they remained steady. They controlled their breathing. Do you think they did that? They controlled their breathing. You don't think they're a little amped up? You don't think that that adrenaline in them is probably running pretty high because they've made that decision of their life? And do you think they're gently pulling this trigger every time? Do you think they're taking those smooth shots? No, they're taking a lot of shots at a lot of easy targets. Here's some things I know about shooting, and everybody in here that has fired a firearm will know, is when you remain steady and you control that breathing, it naturally goes what? Up and down with your breathing. Even just a little bit, right? Up and down. And a little bit may not seem like a big deal, but when a little bit comes out of here and it has to travel about 20, 25, 30, 35 feet, it creates some sort of motion, one way or the other. So, you need to remain steady. You need to control that breathing. Some of us have even learned how to put our sight on there when we exhale, right? Some of us that have been through some excessive stuff, we know to make this circle. So when we're breathing heavy, this is what we would do on the SWAT team, is we breathe heavy, and we know that at the down part of that, that's when we're going to focus our target. This guy is running through the building. This guy has decided that this is the day I'm going to make my mark. And he's controlling his breathing. He's not. Finally, when we say you gently squeeze that trigger, we really mean it. Because if you have too much, and I'm exaggerating this, but if you have too much of your finger on there like this, and you pull that trigger, you're going to squeeze that gun. And it's going to move. And even though it's moving very slight, I could be aiming right there, and when I turn here, I'm hitting Mike's hoppy. Okay? Stop cheering. Okay? So you need to. If you don't put enough of your finger on there, you're going to push your gun. And I'm exaggerating that again, but you're going to push. So you have to have just the right amount of finger on that trigger. So again, I ask you, you mean to tell me that he's gone through and he's practiced to make sure he has just the right amount of trigger finger on there? He has just the right amount of breath control? He's taking time to put the front sight in between the back sight and then put that on target? He's not. So what we have to do is interrupt one of those 5 things, because all of those 5 things are an OODA loop, right? There are vital parts to the body. Heart and lungs are one. You have arteries down here, and of course the head, the back of the neck. Everything else, if you get the right medical attention fast enough, is going to heal. Now, I haven't been shot. I heard that it hurts a whole lot. Okay? But you can still run while you're shot. If you get shot in the shoulder and in the arm, can you run? Yeah, you can. You might need to be reminded that you can run. But getting shot is not like the movies. It's not when you shoot someone, they go up against the wall, and they slowly fall down the wall, and they leave blood on the wall, and they tell you to tell their loved ones that you did the best you could. That's not the case. It hurts. Probably hurts a whole lot. But can you still get out of there? You can. So how was he getting so many fatal shots in one room? Because we didn't make it hard. Because no one interrupted this OODA loop. And we gave him plenty of time. All he needs to do with a rifle, and any of you that have shot a shotgun or a rifle, the closer you get to your target, the easier it is to kill your target, right? So all he needed to do was open the door, look left, look right, see that everybody's waiting over here in the corner, take a couple of seconds and come close, and just start shooting. So all you need to do is interrupt this OODA loop. Those 5 things, he needs to do those. If you interrupted one of those 5 things, he has to start over again, doesn't he? Just like you with that phone call and wanting to take a drink. Now you've got to start all over again. We do it so much you don't even think about it. But think of how you can interrupt that OODA loop. So that's why I say when you're in an office and you have a sheet of, or a pad of paper and you throw it at him, he's pointing this, you throw that, what's the natural instinct for people to do if anything's thrown at them? Is either to reach down and grab it, right? Or move out of the way of it. Okay, so now what do I have to do? I have to line myself up again and do it again. So a sheet of paper, or a pad of paper, excuse me, is pretty effective as it goes along. So now think back to that OODA loop again. Think back to those same 10 coffee cups again. He has that coming at him. Do you think that's going to interrupt an OODA loop? Do you think that's going to cause some sort of disruption? Now we did those coffee cups. Now we're adding 5 chairs and a flagpole. All those things are coming at him. Do you think it's going to interrupt his OODA loop? He's still probably going to shoot, right? He's still probably going to shoot. But remember, we talked about how hard it is. And those that have hunted, those that have done pheasant, it's actually hard to hit a pheasant. There's some people that are probably going, not for me. Well, for me, it's really hard to hit a pheasant. But when you think of all the things that you need to do, so he would probably still be shooting, but can you still fight if you're shot in the arm? Can you still fight if you're shot in the shoulder, if you're shot in the leg? You can still fight, because you don't need to fight to win, right? You just need to fight to make it hard. And the longer you make it hard, you're taking up his time. And that's something that he doesn't have since he committed to this. So think of the different ways that you can fight. So we'll go through, let's say you go with the family to Applebee's, right? We've got run, we've got hide, we've got fight, right? So how many places are there to get out of an Applebee's? There's the front door. There's the car side to go. There's another fire exit. Has anybody ever seen a bag of garbage carried out the front door of an Applebee's? It's got to go somewhere. So there's room in the back. I'm going to tell you this now, that for us that work in the police side, there's those signs that say employees only pass this entrance. If there's a violent incident that happens at a store that you're at, and that manager comes to me and he says, that guy went back where the employees weren't supposed to be, I'm going to tell you all right now, you're good. We'll talk to him. So don't get caught up in that. No access beyond this point. Alarm sounds if you exit this door. Do you care if the alarm sounds or not if you're getting away from a guy with a gun? You can make all the bells and whistles you want. I'm out of here. Think of it when you're at Walmart. You're walking up and down Walmart in the aisles. How many places are there to go? Well, there's fire exits. There's also the grocery side. There is the pharmacy side, or the health and beauty aid side. Have you ever seen a semi-truck pull up to the front of Walmart and unload all of its stuff? You haven't. It's coming from in the back somewhere, right? Think of how quick it is. Think of the last place you were at, the different places. So now we're in that Walmart again, and it came in the front door. We necessarily can't get out of that front door. We're not sure what's going on. We may need to hide and we may need to fight. Is there anything in Walmart that you can fight with if you're shopping for your groceries? Why don't you meet me over at the canned pea aisle? We're going to have a good time. Think of all of those different things. There's plenty of places to hide in Walmart. Jump in between a rack of clothes. Because he's not going rack to rack to see who's hiding inside of him. Remember, he only has that average of 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So it's changing a way of thinking. Some other things that I do that drive my family nuts is whenever we eat at Applebee's, I always sit in the corner and I sit here and I have, my 3 wonderful children right there. What am I doing? I'm seeing, and don't steal this idea. If I go to Applebee's and you're in my spot, I call dibs because I came up with it first. But I'm seeing everything that's going on. Everything that's happening. You guys have so many eyes out there. You guys are so many eyes that you see things that are going on. It's kind of tough in today's world, but if you see something that's not right, does anybody ever get that feeling of this looks a little weird? Okay? It's tough this day to want to say something for fear that people will think that you're singling them out or picking something out. But if you're out there working on a street and you see a kid walking down the street and it's August and it's 11 o'clock and it's already 92 degrees and he's got on a black trench coat and he's got on a black stocking cap and some gloves, does that look weird? Now that just may be his style and he may be into it. But does anybody else think that's unusual? Is it something to definitely kind of just keep poking up and looking at? Sure. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being aware of what's going on. You guys are driving around and you see something that's funky. You're like, that's not right. Doesn't feel right to me. Maybe I'll just keep watching it for a little while longer. We've all heard those things in the news. He seemed like such a nice guy. Or, man, he was real quiet and I didn't want to say anything, but I knew something was up. I wouldn't want to brag about that on the news. I'd want to be that guy that said, you know what? I called, the police checked him, and it was nothing, but now we all know. Right? Everybody remember Sandy Hook? And that was that thing where the kids were taken out, so many of them at a time. Here's something that I want to read you. This comes from, it's the official U.S. Attorney's, information regarding that. I want you to think about the run, the hide, the fight, if you needed to. Okay? The autopsy of the shooter was conducted in 2012. The shooter was age 20. He was 72 inches tall and weighed 112 pounds. 6 foot tall, 112 pounds. If you had to fight like your life depended on it, could you fight someone 6 foot tall and 112 pounds and interrupt his OODA loop enough to where he would go on to the next place? That puts, I'm 6'1", so that puts it into perspective. I'm close to 112, so just think just a little bit skinnier. But, okay, think of half of me. 6 foot tall, 112 pounds. And there was nothing that anyone said that they could do. Do you believe that now? Think of it. Heck, the 10 coffee cups might have been enough to move him along. So when we do that, that's all I want you to do is think of that. Think of those things as they go on. We're going to close up here. The last thing that I'm going to tell you and I'm going to ask you is, as we work for the city, and you guys are out there, you guys are mobile, okay? You see so many more things than I do. Because when I go by, I'm driving that giant billboard that says, I'm here to harass you, I'm here to harass you, I'm here to harass you. But you guys see so much more. And if you see something and it doesn't, we've all heard it. If you see something, say something, right? Mention it. You can all mention it to your supervisors, and your supervisors can call me. Okay, and we'll look at it. And if we do have a violent incident that happens somewhere in this community, we're going to need your help. In pre-plannings that we've done throughout the Cedar Valley, I don't think people realize that if we were to have an active shooter incident, you're going to have Butler County, Bremer County, Grundy County. You're going to have Cedar Rapids Police Department show up, Lynn County with their dogs. We are going to have all sorts of law enforcement. You're going to have all fire agencies. You're going to have all ambulance. It's coming from around here. And we may need help. But if I'm going along and I'm telling all the schools to run, okay? And these kids run away from these schools, think of it. If you're out there working and you're in a truck and the incident happens at, what's the school with the great big long name that's right over here? You know? Yeah. It's happening there. Where are those kids running to? They're running to those neighborhoods. What if you were driving around Industrial Park, outside of the really hot zone, but driving around, and you saw 2 or 3 kids that were running? Could you grab them? Could you bring them back here safe? Some of you are parents. Would you care if a city worker grabbed your kid and brought him back to his building to make him safe? Heck no. If you see mine, grab them. Good luck. They'll probably just take off and run like little terrors, but have fun with it. But that's something that we would probably call on you to do. Scour neighborhoods. Look for kids. In Sandy Hook, there were 2 kids that decided to run. One of the kids said, "This isn't right," and took off. He grabbed his buddy and said, "Come on, let's go." And they ran. They found him hours later at this old man's house. They were in the porch. And the old man put him up there, and he said, "I was going to hold on to him until somebody came to me." He said, so they were safe. I wasn't going to go walking back out there with them. He held on to those kids. It's probably the same thing all of us would do. The last thing I'll close with is, as this goes along, and you see those things and you say those things, I'm just asking everybody to be kind, be nice. The world could use a whole lot more of it these days. So if you have any questions, I'll stick around. If you have any questions that you want the rest of them to know, please shout it out. But other than that, have a good day. Drive, stay cool. Thank you.